Это пиздец. Это пиздец.
A powerful explosion tore through a Russian ammunition depot in Donetsk, followed by another massive blast in the Donetsk region, sending fireballs and shockwaves across the front. These scenes of destruction have become increasingly common as Ukrainian forces step up strikes on enemy stockpiles. Every detonation cripples Russia's ability to supply artillery, rockets, and equipment to its troops, creating gaps on the battlefield. The sight of ammunition depots erupting into towering flames is more than just destruction of material. It is a blow to morale, exposing deep vulnerabilities behind the lines. By relentlessly targeting these hubs, Ukraine is turning Russia's own firepower into a liability, forcing dispersal, chaos, and costly delays in resupply. Each explosion is a clear signal that no stockpile is safe, and that the war is now fought not only on the front, but in the heart of the enemy's supply chain. On the Kupiansk axis, recon from the 77th Air Assault Brigade spotted a Russian group trying to entrench near a residential building. A T-72 tank from the 7th Rapid Reaction Corps was called in and destroyed the four-man unit with 5 precise shots from a claimed 9,100 meters. On the Kupiansk front, fighting is intense. Russian forces are pressing to break through toward Kupiansk, pushing across the Oskil River and probing Ukrainian lines. Despite heavy pressure, Ukraine is holding its positions, though much of the city's infrastructure is wrecked and civilians are under severe strain. And we are continuing with the final chapter of the story. Memoirs of a Mobik, Part 4. Mobilized Russian soldier Ukol continues his recollections of working as a medical orderly on the front line. In this final part, he describes how he participated in the torture and execution of Ukrainian prisoners before having a mental breakdown. Ukol says that his unit only took a few Ukrainian prisoners during its months of fighting over a village he calls the Necropolis, as they routinely killed them instead. On one occasion, he was called on to use his medical skills to keep one prisoner alive under torture. There is a reason for this. The Kraken, a banned terrorist Nazi-armed group under the wing of the GUR Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, was fighting against us. Once, as a medic, I was called in to interrogate one such prisoner. It was necessary to monitor his condition so that he would not go to another world during the interrogation, because at first he was a hero and refused to talk. But a little later he softened up and shared some things. For example, that despite his emaciated appearance and trench beard, he was 21 years old. And according to him, most of them were like that. Ideological, young and daring. It was hard to fight them. They really enjoyed fighting and killing. Sick bastards. Our brothers from Serbia, one of the special forces, had an emblem with the slogan, "Terrorism is a disease, call a doctor." Well, so we acted like doctors. We didn't want to talk to those goats who were captured at all. They didn't spare us, and we didn't spare them either. Once, by mistake, they captured a girl of about 20 to 22 years old. I think it was in the necropolis itself. Well, a close-range fight, you understand. She got separated from her comrades. Maybe things would have turned out differently in her attitude if she had been an ordinary Ukrainian soldier. But she ended up with a Kraken chevron, which she was excessively proud of. Our stormtroopers were not in the mood for long walks to the rear. Well, you get the idea. Russian executions of Ukrainian prisoners have been reported on many occasions. It appears to be a consistent policy. Although he was a medic, Ukol says he frequently participated in attacks on the Ukrainians. After all, as a medic, you are called from position to position. And you can hang around there for a long time because of shelling or because of an order. In such cases, you become a fighter. Because at some positions, we sat 5 people at a time. And the medic who came is an additional rifle and ammunition. At one such position at the end of 2023, I was trusted to fire from a Schmel flamethrower, thermobaric rocket launcher at the forest belt opposite where the Yukis were sitting, specifically at the dugout in which they were hiding. I was completely lucky. I hit from no less than a couple of 100 meters. I saw how the dugout was scattered, including by internal detonation. After a while, the drone operator praised us on the radio. There were traces of several Yuki soldiers inside the ruins of the dugout. In other cases, I have no reliable results about my shooting. Although we were in the necropolis in the winter of 2022 to 2023 at grenade-throwing range with the enemy. Ukol's service in the front line came to an end in the spring of 2024 when he transferred to a rear echelon position. By this time, he says, the members of his brigade were transferred entirely to contract service. The mobilized were spent. The survivors were transferred to other parts of our unit. I was thrown into the mobilized Regiment X. There I worked in my specialty until the end of spring. Ukol suffered a psychological breakdown under the constant stress. It all ended with me catching a psycho. They pulled out a wounded man for me, of moderate severity. I treated his wound but obsessively looked for hidden injuries, continued to examine him, crawling on my knees and muttering under my breath. That's what they told me later. I was removed from the combat unit, given a rest period in the regiment's medical battalion, injected with sedatives and vitamins. After that, I transferred to rear work. Ukol says that serving at the rear has given him a different perspective on the war. It hasn't become easier for me in the rear. It is a mistaken opinion of civilians that in the rear there is relaxation and a free ride. No. When you work in the rear, you see how reinforcements are trained, how the front and rear are supplied, and you also watch how decision makers think. And that's when you understand why there is such a meat grinder on the front. In the rear, you understand more deeply how war really works. And rear work is no less tiring with its monotony and its madness. An attempt to keep up with the standards of service in civilian life as in the deployment point, because of endless checks, because of the increasingly sophisticated nitpicking of the military police and the state police. I live with the thought that the ongoing negotiations will lead to the end of the conflict and our demobilization. I'll hold out for another 6 months. Then I don't know what to do. I'm so tired of everything. I want a reasonable, peaceful life so much. At the end of the Memoirs of a Mobik, we have seen the full horror. The brutal conditions inside the Russian army, the inhuman treatment of their own soldiers, and the murder of Ukrainian prisoners. This is a barbaric, savage, and backward war machine that must be defeated and dismantled for the sake of humanity, accountability, and any hope of lasting peace. Poland has begun closing all railway border crossings with Belarus. All border crossings between Poland and Belarus were closed overnight, ahead of the start of joint Russian-Belarusian military exercises, Polish news outlet Onet reported. Traffic across the border was suspended in both directions, including cars and cargo trains. The Zapad 2025, meaning West in Russian drills, which begin on September 12th in Belarus and Western Russia, have heightened concerns among NATO's eastern member states, such as Poland, Lithuania, and Latvia.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comments section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week, it's 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.